Well, good morning, everybody, and Gong Hee Fa Choi. So happy Chinese New Year's. Or as my brother-in-law says, Gung Ho Fat Boy. This coming week on Friday, February 12th, is two times a year that the Wong family gathers to celebrate. And of course, that always involves a lot of eating. And uh, Pagoda restaurant in Dinkytown, and there we have a delicious 12-course banquet. Um, and and then afterwards, and trying to carry out traditions of the generation that's passed, we follow that up with a rowdy afternoon of playing mahjong and of course more eating. But of course this year, due to COVID, we're unable to gather together. But we're still planning on having some takeout food and doing a Zoom call so that we can all meet together, and that way we can include cousins that are all across the country. So this year is the year of the ox. And is anyone out there an ox? In the culture, the animal, because of its role in agriculture. And ox are known to be hardworking, honest, strong, reliable, fair, conscientious. They're also considered to be calm and patient, methodical, and trusted. Does that sound like you? And they also say, though, that they can be very opinionated, stubborn, and that they hate to fail or be challenged. You can turn to the next page. You can advance it. Well, there. Okay. So the ox is the second of all the zodiac animals, because according to one story I heard, when the Buddha was very near death, he called for all the animals of the world to come hear his final teaching, and that the first 12 animals who came would be rewarded. So upon hearing this call, various animals started their trek to find the Buddha. And the rat, who was very smart and crafty, was able to convince that ox that he would direct him to find the Buddha if the ox would let him ride on his head. So rat, more or less, got a free ride to the Buddha. Then, just as they arrived, rat jumped down and landed ahead of the ox. Thus, ox became the second animal, and therefore the year of the rat is the first year of the zodiac. You can turn the page. Oxen are also a well-loved symbol in Japan. And I remember going to the flea market at Kitano Temmangu Shrine in Kyoto. And when we were there, we saw crowds of students flocking around a statue of the ox. And it was surrounded by beautiful flowering plum trees. And we were asking the kids what they were doing as they were rubbing this ox. And they said they were rubbing it for luck in hopes of boosting their exam grades. You can click the button. The ox is associated with the scholar, poet, politician Michizani, who lived in the 9th century and was exiled unfairly by the government. And it said that he suffered a very sad and lonely death. Michizani was said to be very fond of oxen, as they had protected him from assassins at one time. And so after his death, oxen carried his remains in his funeral procession. And suddenly they stopped midway along the route and refused to go any further. So people built a shrine right there on the spot where the oxen is halted. But soon after Michizani's death, disaster struck the capital, and there were floods and earthquakes and multiple lightning strikes. And they were of his vengeful spirit. And so to appease him, he was deified as the Shinto god Tenjin. or sky god, and also known as the god of academics, scholarship, and calligraphy. And his spirit was enshrined in shrines called Tembangu. You can advance it. And oxen are also featured in a Zen Buddhist parable from the 13th century. There is a story called The 10 Scenes with an Ox. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I'm going to just give you a summary. But what this story is said to depict is the stages of practice leading to enlightenment for Zen practitioners. So turn it. So the story begins with a man searching for an ox that he's lost. Turn. And he wanders and wanders and he searches and he finally discovers some of the ox's footprints. This was the first sign of evidence of his spiritual quest. Advance. And then finally, he sees the ox, so he knows he's on the right track. And so the symbolism here is the ox symbolizes the ultimate reality of Buddha nature, the fundamental nature of all beings, that anyone can gain enlightenment. And the ox herder symbolizes the individual self. Next. So with great difficulty, the ox herder wrestles the ox. And this is in his struggle to have a relationship with it. Next. And he finally tethers the ox with a rope and is able to loosen his grip. But he still holds on so he doesn't lose track of it. Next. And eventually, he's able to tame and train the ox, deepening his relationship with it, or his relationship with the truth, which is really about our relationship to life. Next. And with time and dedication, he has a transformation of his heart and mind, and he realizes that there's no more sense of seeking something outside or anything outside of us. Next. And in the end, the ox and the ox herder are no longer separate. They are one. And the whole struggle was an illusion to begin with. And he comes to realize the ultimate truth that everything is Buddha nature. And he understands the preciousness of the most ordinary things of life. Next. The Zen idea is that enlightenment can take place in all events of life. Next. The man returns to the world simple and happy and realizes the action of the journey is the journey of enlightenment. Next. So for Shin Buddhists, Shinran describes Buddha nature as something that's within all sentient beings. The seed of enlightenment is buried deep within us, deeper than our ego self. The Buddha nature lays dormant until awakened by great love and great compassion through the experience of Shinjin. That's the term used in Shin Buddhism for this awakening that takes place within us. The experience of Shinjin is the reality of true and trusting, and is the reality of awakening the Buddha nature, which is the consciousness of Amida's true mind, which is love and compassion. These are the qualities of the Buddha. And the transformation of mind that comes about through Shinjin illuminates us foolish beings, and the awareness of love and compassion awakens us. Next. And as Shinran wrote in the Hymns of the Pure Land, Tathagata is none other than Nirvana. Nirvana is called Buddha nature. Beyond our ability to attain it in the state of foolish beings, we will realize it on reaching the land of peace. And so when our hard shells are cracked open by Amida, we undergo this change without actually doing anything other than being attentive and fully receptive through deep hearing to this awareness that is freely given to us. Our cold hearts melt. Our cold hearts start to melt as we lose ourselves in this all-encompassing embrace that urges us to surrender to us. And once a person is awakened by the light of true compassion, the aspiration for enlightenment becomes vividly real, and Buddha nature, for the first time, becomes a dynamic reality. When we awaken to boundless compassion, that makes real the Buddha nature that has been dormant within us. Next. So the predictions for 2021 are that it's going to be a better year for almost all the Chinese zodiac signs. And that in the year of the ox, the balance of the world economy and social harmony depends primarily on peace. And so may those predictions come true, and may we all awaken the Buddha nature within us. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya.